Hello everyone, it's Yvonne here from the Aussie Goddess to do a little bit of a life coaching session with you. I know it's about time, and I know there's been a lot of things Spirit has been asking me to talk about, but I feel like now with the planetary sort of arrangement at the moment, it's really important that I speak to you about what does it mean about speaking my truth or living in my truth? Now, I've had people say to me before, well, I'm a very honest person. And I guess for years I thought the same way. I thought, well, maybe they're talking about me being honest, and I'd always been honest. But when we talk about living in your truth or standing in your truth, we're not necessarily talking about you being honest in the way you speak or express yourself. It's about being true to who you are. So if you've grown up in a home where you've not been allowed to be yourself, or you've been reprimanded, punished, or given some sort of hard time about expressing yourself, sometimes what happens is you start to sort of like temper your behavior. You start to become something different because you feel that some way or another you're not meeting perhaps your parents' expectations, maybe even your siblings. So you tend to sort of trim what you do down to suit everybody else. So that might mean you've earned the title of being too much, too loud, too sensitive, whatever. But you start to trim that back and you start to become something perhaps that you're not. But it's a survival mechanism. What do I mean by a survival mechanism? If you've got into trouble for things and you're a very sensitive child, what starts to happen is you start to look at how you can preserve or conserve your sense of being. So what you will do is you will start to change the way you behave to ensure that you don't get into trouble, you don't create conflict. What goes deeper than that is this sense of shame. So in doing this, sometimes we feel this innate sense of shame about who we are. We don't feel that we can be ourselves, because when we're ourselves, other people are uncomfortable with that. Whether that's because they're angry with you for expressing yourself, or whether it triggers their own sense of who they are. So let's have an example. Think about the fact that perhaps you're a very loud child, which is quite normal for a child to be loud. We're very expressive, we have no boundaries, we've got to learn all that stuff as we're growing. So, for example, you're a very loud child, you yell and scream all the time, and your parents constantly tell you to shut up. Not just to be a little quieter, to use an inside voice. Maybe, there could have been a very different way of allowing you to be yourself, but perhaps just expressing that there were times and places where you needed to be a little bit more conservative. But what happens is you get told to shut up, pipe down, go away, go to your room, you're too noisy, whatever. And what starts to happen from that is you start to feel ashamed for who you are. You feel ashamed for expressing yourself. You feel ashamed because you're too loud. You feel sorry for people then, because you think if they are uncomfortable with this, then I am doing something to hurt them. So you start to change how you do it. Now, what is really important to remember here is this isn't about your behavior or about who you are. This is about your parents being uncomfortable with the noise. So maybe they have been sort of on edge. Maybe they're the type of person who finds it very uncomfortable when things are noisy around them. Perhaps you're overtaking their space and they want to be the most important thing in the room. There are lots of reasons why somebody might tell you to shut up, pipe down, be quiet, move away, go to your room. But as a child, you've got no understanding of what that means. So what do? You go to your room and you start to create guilt and shame of yourself. So as you grow older, you start to become more quiet. You might become more conservative. You may start to get to a point in your life where you feel if you speak up or speak in a way that's true to you, you might be creating conflict. You might feel ashamed of speaking up. You might feel other people will view you badly for that. There's this energy that you create that becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So then you grow into an adult. And what happens as an adult, you may attract somebody around you that reinforces that for you. You might attract a partner or a friend who says to you something about, you're not very confident, or why are you this way? So you become people become more critical of you because you're trying really to put forward a part of yourself that isn't true to who you are. But what you do internally is you start to monitor your own behavior subconsciously in line with what you learned as a child. So when it comes to speaking up against something, instead of saying, oh no, I can't do that, that's not how I feel, I can't say that, I can't do that, I can't move in that direction, it starts to really sort of impact your confidence in yourself, because you're oppressing or suppressing those parts of you that were natural to you as a child. So you may find it very difficult to create conflict with other people, or what you perceive as conflict. So, somebody says, let's do this, and you feel very uncomfortable with it. And before you've even thought about how uncomfortable you feel, you've gone into this energy of space of going, oh yes, okay, I'll go along with that. Why? Number one, because you fear conflict with that person. So if you've been punished for speaking up for yourself in the past, being loud at what you do, being outspoken about something you've believed in, then you will start to do that as an adult too. And that might mean you're not being true to who you are. This is why we talk about standing in your truth. It's not about being honest. You may be honest, but what starts to happen is you start to develop, I think I would call it a Switzerland complex, where you are a fence sitter, you're scared of being able to express yourself, you keep yourself tapered so you don't upset other people, and you constantly monitor that. Until in the end, what starts to happen is you actually forget who you are. And that is the big impact here. So very often, if we've had very abusive or toxic houses to grow up in as children, it might mean that as adults we attract very similar people in who may reinforce those things. When you do try to speak up, they might sort of put you down or put some sort of energy on you that is their own energy, which makes them feel uncomfortable. So you may take things very personally because of that. So you may have this energy of, somebody may say something, and because as a child you took that on yourself, you might find other people offend you really easily, and you may take things very personally. So all of this comes down to, what makes me afraid to speak my truth? Why can't I speak up for myself? Why can't I ask for what I want? Whether that's at work, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a friendship, or even with your own family, there is an energy here that you can't be true to who you are because of the way you view yourself and your own shame and guilt within that. So let's have a look at how you can start understanding that, because most of you will feel this way. You'll walk away, you'll procrastinate, you'll be doing this energy of, I really didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go there. Why did I agree? Why did I find myself going when I didn't want to? I actually wanted Chinese. They wanted Indian, but I find now I'm eating Indian food because I didn't know how to speak up for myself. And you become, as I said, Switzerland. You sit on the fence because it's safe, because it's been a survival mechanism for so very long. It is now a natural part of how you do. Well, it's not really natural, because actually you will keep questioning. Your intuition will step in all the time and say, why did you say yes to that when you really wanted to say no? Why did you agree to working overtime when you wanted to spend time with your family? Why did you agree to, eat this particular food when actually you wanted this other food? And you have conflict within yourself. So then you self-flagellate, you punish yourself then, because you're really anxious. You wanted to speak up and you didn't know how to. Next time I'm going to do it. That's what you say to yourself. Next time I'll get this right. Next time I'll speak up for myself. Next time I'll do it. And the next time the same things happen. And what happens then? We accumulate guilt and shame, guilt and shame, guilt and shame. And we start to really distrust who we are, because we can't even be true to who we want to be. How do you fix that? You start doing it. You start speaking up. Even if it's only little, you start. you start to be able to say something. And I want to say to you, the first time you're assertive, you will shake in your boots, you will feel sick to the stomach, and you will fear what is going to happen. But you need to say it with a little bit of power. And once you start that, it starts to become more natural to you to be who you are. Now, I can remember first doing this, and the first few times I started speaking up for myself, I came across as aggressive. So people thought I was being aggressive, and I'm like, I'm not aggressive at all, because I'd suppressed my anger as well. So I couldn't understand why people saw me as angry, because there just was no part of me that was angry. But you see, your energy reflects a very different, because you're still reflecting the energy of who you're supposed to be, but your body doesn't do the same thing. So you become what we call incongruent. Your feelings and your words don't match. So then you sort of sometimes create this energy of not feeling that people can trust you. Sometimes you feel invisible, because what happens is you become so used to going along with everybody else and hiding behind this mask that you've formed that says, this is who I am, that you start to become invisible. And I reckon there's many of you at the moment going, oh my God, I remember doing that. I remember thinking I'm invisible. People don't see me. Why do people not see me? I tried to express myself. I tried to speak up. People ignore me. Why? Because you do not trust that person inside that was who you were meant to be. Again, it's a survival mechanism. It keeps you safe. You don't want to speak up because, number one, you do not want people to get upset with you. You do not want to upset the status quo. Now, this really leads into this energy of people pleasing, where people say to me, but I like to do things for other people. You might, but if you're doing it and you're not being true to who you are, then that's not healthy either. And it's quite manipulative, because you're making sure you don't get hurt in the process. Again, survival mechanism. So if you take anything away from this, what I want you to take away here is the reason that you are not being true to who you are, you're not speaking up, you're not expressing yourself in a way that you want to, is because you have an innate fear of people making judgment on you. You have an innate fear of creating conflict. You have a survival mechanism that keeps you safe here. And this is why you do what you do. Is it wrong? Of course not. It's a learned behavior. You have learned to do this to be safe. You have learned to be invisible, so people can't be critical of you and you can't be judged. But actually, you really want those things. Not that you want to be judged, but you want people to be honest with you, and you want to be able to speak your piece about that. So if people are talking about living in your truth, that is what they mean. Being true to the person that you were born to be. You are a beautiful creation, and you were born without a blemish. You were born sin-free, which is not a religious view, but you were. You were born a perfect creature. And that is what you have to find your way back to. Will you become perfect again? Probably not, but you'll be the most imperfect, perfect vision of yourself. And you will feel true. You will not procrastinate. You will not give yourself a hard time. You will not beat yourself up, because when you walk away after putting your point forward, you will realize that you've been true to who you are. You've been true to yourself as a person. There'll be no more second guessing. You will be 100% okay to make decisions. You won't go backwards and forwards. People will start seeing you, because they should have seen you in the first place, but you were so busy hiding away with your shame and your guilt and your fear about people seeing who the true you was. And you didn't like the true you because it upset your parents, upset your family, upset the people at school. So I hope that's helped you. If you want to ask any questions, please pop them in the box below. I'm always happy to answer your questions for you. If you're interested in doing life coaching with me, as I always say, flick me an email. We'll work something out for you. Much love.